Hi everybody, this is Steve Ludwig, host of Steve Ludwig's Classic Pop Culture and the Beatles Hour with Steve Ludwig at planetludwig.com. Here's an interview we did with Dennis Tufano on July 1st, 2014. It's from show number 47. To hear the entire show, check out the menu at planetludwig.com. And now, please enjoy the interview. And Beyond the Sea from the wonderful latest CD by our next guest. The name of the CD is I Remember Darren. Before that, we heard Susan, of course, by the Buckinghams. And our guest is the original voice of the Buckinghams, except no imitations, everyone. Dennis Tufano, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome to the show, Dennis.
Well, thank you, Steve. It's great to be on the show, man. It's great.
My wife and I are both children of the 60s, and we loved the Buckinghams even before we started dating. We found out later on that we shared this love of the Buckinghams. So to be able to speak with you is a real pleasure and an honor. I wanted you to know that.
Well, thank you. I believe your wife's name is Susan also. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. So every time that song came on, Dennis, you can imagine.
That's great. It's amazing whenever you have a song that has a name attached to it, how the relationships grow. You know, it's like a direct drive right to that person. It's great to have those.
I guess you've heard from a lot of Susan fans throughout the years, huh?
Oh yeah. There's it's kind of interesting because I always ask if there's any men or women out there in the audience named Susan I'd like to dedicate the song to. And but there's only a few Susans out there in the audiences, which is interesting, you know, unless they're just shy to be recognized. But
was Susan a real person? Was Susan a real person, Dennis, or just kind of a fiction?
Jim Hove, who wrote the song, him and Gary Beadsmer, but Jim wrote a big portion of the lyric. He was actually in a band out of Chicago called The Mob, a very great band. Which actually started the whole Chicago sound. Basically, they were around. They were actually a club band that was together for 15 years. They had three horns. They did a lot of R&B songs. They're more of a show band, and they really started the Chicago sound from what they called it. You know, I mean, we got tagged with it, I think, because of our association with him and everything else. So we were part of the people carrying the sound forward. But Jim was going. They were playing in Chicago at the Happy Medium, a great jazz venue there, and there was a girl downstairs in the club below called the Pussycat Lounge. She was a dancer down there, and her name was Susan. And actually, the song "Susan," "Kind of a Drag," "Don't You Care," those are all written about her.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
certainly. Certainly a muse, huh?
Yeah, she broke her heart. So, but he certainly relished in the fact that he got a lot of creativity spilled all over him with that one. So he said the heartbreak wasn't that bad.
We're gonna speak in a few minutes, everybody, about this terrific CD, I Remember Darren, by Dennis Tufano. But first, I want all the fans to know that this Friday, July 4th, at 7 p.m., Dennis will be at the Mizell Avenue Park in Springfield, New Jersey with the 60s Spectacular. Tell us a little bit about that, Dennis.
Oh, it's going to be great. It's the 1910 Fruit Gum Company, great friends of mine and a great band, and they're going to be backing me up also, along with doing their own show. And Barbara Harris from the Toys will be there too. And the Mizell Park is a great annual event. They always have a few thousand people come out for that. And, hoping that, the summer weather will hold up fine for us and not rain on us, and it should be a great show.
It wouldn't dare rain, Dennis. It's the 4th of July. There's no way it's going to rain for you. And guys, I was going to say, go to TufanoFans.com, of course, TUFANO, for all of the tour info with Dennis Tufano. Like I said, the original voice of the Buckinghams. I know Dennis is a very humble man, but the Buckinghams also tour, but that's not Dennis Tufano. If you want to hear the real voice of the Buckinghams, see Dennis Tufano in concert. We had Frank Jekyll on from the 1910 Fruit Gum Company a few months ago. He's such a wonderful guy.
Oh, they're all guy. I mean, I've known him for years now, and we've played together many times, and they're a lot. And they're it's like the way they play their music is so solid. You know, I mean, they're really grounded in what they do, and they really do a great job. You know, it's like I told them last time I worked with them that they sound better than their records.
Yeah, they all really wonderful musicians. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, they really do, and they sing really well. I mean, it's going to be a great gig with them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's this July 4th, everybody. This Friday night, 7 p.m. at the Mizell Avenue Park in Springfield, New Jersey. Again, go to tufanofans.com for that tour information, and also while we're at it, go to dtsings.com. Dennis Tufano, dtsings.com, Dennis's official website. Speaking of great musicians, the Michael Acosta Orchestra, and I remember Darren. Dennis, this is a joy, this CD.
Thank you.
Of course, you cover Bobby Darin songs, and no one can argue with choosing Bobby Darin, but how did you finally arrive at, okay, Bobby Darin is the one whom I'm going to cover?
Well, it was very interesting. It's like, you know, as a singer, once you get past 30, there's not a whole lot you can do. They don't consider older singers viable, I guess, in the entertainment world. And it's very difficult to go out and jam with people because you can't plug your throat into the PA and just kind of jam with people. So you have to find something on your own. So I was, for years, looking for something for, something for a singer to do, a complete show, something I can actually have a good time singing the songs and also bring something to the people that they haven't heard. And I was at my sister's house in Chicago, and I was visiting there, and she was playing some CDs, and a Bobby Darin CD came on, and I started walking around the house singing along to it. And later she said to me, she says, "Are you aware of the fact that while you were singing with Bobby Darin's CD, that the tone of your voice and the range of your voice and just the sound of it was very close to his, and you sounded really comfortable singing it?" And I said, "Well, I never thought about that, but I really do love his stuff." And I was inspired in high school when I saw him on the Dick Clark show. He was actually all the other singers, you know, the Bobby Rydells, the Paul Ankas, and all those guys. They were coming on. Everybody was dressing up in suits and ties, and, you know, they were only 17 years old. They looked very adult and very proper. Well, Bobby Darin came on sitting in a cardboard cutout tub with a back brush with no shirt on, singing Splish Splash. and I went, my God, this guy's good and he's funny. You know, he had a sense of humor. So I immediately connected to Bobby Darin, and also being an Italian crooner myself, I kind of definitely connected with, all the Italian guys that were up there, you know, Bobby Rydell, Paul Anka, Bobby Rydell, and Bobby Darin. So I immediately, and I tell the story on stage too, when I do the Darin show, I said that I was inspired by him back in high school, and I was in the back seat of a 56 Chevy doing some biology homework. And Dream Lover. I really liked homework.
Without the books, yeah, of course.
And so I definitely, it used to be a moment in my life where I'd hear him singing, it was usually Splish Splash, Queen of the Hop, and Dream Lover, and then after high school, all the other songs. But I definitely got inspired by him. So when I came back from visiting my sister, I really invested a lot in a bunch of box sets and every CD and book I could find about Bobby Darin. And I really got blown away by his life and the music and he did 5 different genres. And I said, this is amazing. If I could actually sift through these songs and find something that was cohesive as a show and did kind of a timeline of his career, this would be a great thing to do. So I took on the task of going through it, and it took me about a year. And I came up with about 100 and something songs, which was much too much for any show. And then I met Michael Acosta, the musical director, who was just laid out of Brian Setzer's orchestra. And he sat down with me, and he looked at the list of songs and was familiar with all of them, being an arranger and a saxophone player. And he just went through the list and said, "Oh yeah, this one, this one, this one, this one, this," and came up with a perfect kind of set from all the choices I made that were cohesive, had variety, and showed all the different genres of Bobby Darin. And we started working on it slowly, and then it culminated into the CD, which we did live in Chicago. at the Skokie Theater and to live audience, and it was came out great. I mean, we had a half of Los Angeles musicians and half of Chicago musicians on that, and they played their hearts out. It's came out to be a really nice live record.
Oh, every cut on it, Dennis, is just superb. I like the Dream medley too that you do on this.
Yeah, Well, we used to do all those songs full, but it took too much time. There's just not enough time to do every song. So Michael Costa came up with a really good medley of those songs, starting with Dream Lover, Queen of the Hop, Splish Splash. They just work out really well. They're a nice little piece of what he did in the beginning. It plugs you right into who he was. Yeah,
I'd like to read for our listeners a review of one of your concerts in Hollywood, California, at the Catalina Jazz Club, and this is when you had performed your Bobby Darin songs and mixed it up with some Buckingham songs. Here's what the reviewer said. Here's what the reviewer said about Dennis: his insurmountable energy, his determination to give his audience the best possible experience they could have, his charm and humor, and then there's that voice. The warm baritone that can induce heartfelt tears from a tender ballad, the swinging voice that gets people clapping and swaying, the rock and blues voice that gets to the heart of the matter and pulls you to your feet with so much adrenaline you think the place will collapse. It can't possibly hold in all this enthusiasm and wonderment. And that comes so through on the CD, Dennis.
No, that's great. I haven't seen that review.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
And it's amazing how you're able to, sometimes there's nothing like being at a live performance in person, but it doesn't always translate well to CD or to album. But you've done it with this one, with I Remember Darin. You've got to be.
Thank you.
You got to be real happy with it.
I am. I was very, very pleased with it. I mean, we worked hard to make sure that we got the music down. So, because a live recording is tough. I mean, there's a lot of variables in a live recording. And we weren't, we didn't have a budget like Michael Jackson would have, but so we had to be very careful about, getting the live part of it down, so we didn't make any mistakes. So technology could just pick up what we did, and it worked out well that way. But the reason I wanted to do it live also was because I come from. My background before we made records was performing live, and Bobby Darin's music was all about that too back in the day. I mean, playing the Copacabana and all the Vegas and everything else.
Right.
His music lends itself to live, being there, presenting it with energy, and also the Bobby Darin stuff related to me too, because I play the same instruments he plays, so I could play the guitar, the piano, the harmonica, all the things that he did in his music. I just went, oh my God, this is going to be like putting on a nice pair of gloves,
Yeah,
and I'll tell you, it's a lot of fun to do his music. I actually had the honor of performing for the Bobby Darin Foundation in Las Vegas, and I was called one day by his former bass player, Billy Mack. And his guitar player, G.K. Kellman, who they worked with Bobby Darin for the last 8 years of his career, and they called me and said, "Look, we've heard your versions of Bobby's stuff, and we really like what you do. So would you come to Vegas and be a part of this?" And it was in front of 500 of his fan club members that had been a Bobby Darin fan forever. And I got up there and I was able to sing like 9-10 songs with them. And it was just an amazing feeling because I got the blessing from the fan club, and they wrote some very nice things about the show, and really gave me a great pat on the back for respecting his music, which is what was my point in the beginning. I didn't want to imitate Bobby Darin. I don't think that can be done. Mm-hmm. I think that you have to present his music the best you can, and that's what I try to do.
Well, you so masterfully, Dennis. They're definitely Bobby Darin songs, but they're Dennis Tufano songs as well. You didn't lose your identity within these songs, yet you honored the memory of Bobby Darin. It's a tough kind of road to hoe, but you did a magnificent job.
Well, it was daunting in the beginning because I had those same fears that you're talking about. I didn't want to lose myself. I didn't imitate. and I didn't, with those two criteria, I didn't then want to take the juice out of the music. Mm-hmm. So it was a interesting kind of juggling act to be able to work slowly on it, to know that those things were going to come together and be presented well. And it did. It turned out great, you know. But, you know, if you really open up your heart to this music, it takes you with it. There's a ride involved in it that I can't take any credit for. I'm just a hitchhiker on it for the most part. You know, I feel sometimes like I'm channeling the music. So it's a lot of fun for a singer to have this kind of material to work with.
And you know, you did the job because you were accepted by probably his toughest critics, his fan club, or your toughest critics would have been his fan club, and they were all for it. So you nailed it.
Yeah, they were real sweet to me. I was shaking in my boots up there because I was watching them from the stage, and they were all singing along.
Yeah,
going, if I mess up one phrase there, I'm in trouble. So, you know, and what helped a lot was in the middle of the show. It's actually, I think it was in the middle of Beyond the Sea I was doing, and I looked over to my left, and there was Billy McCubbin, the bass player, smiling at me, and over to my right was T.K. Kelman, his guitar player, and he was smiling at me, and I just felt like, you know, his musicians, his best friends were saying, it's okay what you're doing. It's okay. And that was a moment for me.
I'm getting goosebumps listening to this story.
It's exactly the experience, And so I felt like I was doing the right thing, and that this is something I can embrace and continue to bring to the people. So it was a nice find for me. Like I said earlier, you know, tough to find something, a body of work for a singer to continue to sing. And when I do my shows now, when I do the Bobby Darin show or the classic rock show, I do all the hits in both shows, because they fit into the timeline of the Bobby Darin chronology.
Right.
And so it's when Bobby Darin got a little bit sick, I said, well, the inspiration came full circle. I do all my hits, you know, and that worked out really great. And then, well, in the classic rock show, I, of course, do all the hits and some other 60s songs, but then I do the rest of the show as Bobby Darin material, because it's the same period of time.
Oh, what
and
a show
audience,
that must be. Oh.
And the audience loves Bobby Darin stuff. You know, they even come up to me and say, well, we came to see you and to sing your hits, and we love your hits, but boy, what a surprise to get the Bobby Darin stuff too.
Yeah, well, so thanks to you.
It really feels good that when I bring the music to them, because they always say, wow, we didn't know Bobby Darin did that, or we didn't know Bobby Darin wrote that. We just knew, you know, Carpenter or Splish Splash or Mac
right?
Yeah, they know the Dream Lover, but there's like a body of work that he did, some songs that he didn't make hits out of, that other people did, that I bring to the show, and it really is great. It's you know, jazz, it's rock and roll, swing, folk, country, blues. He wrote a great blues song called "Funny What Love Can Do," and it's an amazing song that he wrote. I'm having a ball doing that stuff.
Yeah. We're speaking with Dennis Tufano, the original voice of the Buckinghams, for me and all of us first-generation Buckingham fans, the only voice of the Buckinghams. But Dennis has this amazing CD, I Remember Darin. It's available on CD Baby, iTunes, Amazon.com, all the usual outlets. This has been playing in my CD player in my car for days and days and days, Dennis.
God bless you, Steve.
Guys, you have to get I Remember Darin. And what's nice, too, is, as Dennis mentioned, he throws a few Buckingham songs in there as well. Dennis's website.
You know, there's another thing, Steve. There's an app that my friend Pam Dixon.
Pam. Good old Pam.
Yeah, she's great. She put together an app. It's for Android, and it's also for iPhone. So if you go to the App Store and put in Dennis Tufano, there's a great app it's a very simple, straight-ahead thing. It has pictures, it has videos, it has samples of all the I Remember Darin stuff, and it has links to iTunes and things like that. So if you go to the App Store and just punch in Dennis Tufano, you'll get an app that comes up for either Android or iTunes. iPhone.
iPhone, yeah. So, I'm going to download it as soon as this interview is over, Dennis. Dennis, you also, of course, are on Facebook. You have your Facebook page. And Twitter. You're also on Twitter.
Yeah. I'm on Twitter. I'm a newbie to Twitter. So you tweeters out there, be patient with me.
Yeah.
It's a little daunting, all of the social media stuff right now, but Twitter is great. I like it. Matter of fact, when my first tweet went out, the first one I got back was from B.J. Thomas, which was great.
Oh, wow.
And we hadn't spoken in many, many years, but we had worked together a lot in the 60s. And he tweeted me saying, "Oh, great to see you on Twitter." And it reminded me when I saw your name that we did a show in Memphis together where there was a riot.
Oh my gosh!
It was
what was that all
and
about?
I said, "Oh my God!" It was something that had nothing to do with the show. Something that happened in the back of the venue someplace. But there was some kind of riot that took place, and they halted the show for a small period of time until they cleared the area. But I had totally forgotten about that until he tweeted me on that. So, the social media stuff is actually good to get the brain moving a little bit.
Yeah. It's tough
Yeah.
keeping it under 140 characters, though, isn't it, Dennis? That's what I had to get used to mostly with Twitter. 140 characters, and that's it. Yeah.
It gives us all a chance to be, succinct and specific.
Yeah,
That's a good
exactly. We're speaking with Dennis Tufano. Once again, everyone, dtsings.com is Dennis's official website. And also go to tufanofans.com. That gives you a lot of other information, including Dennis's tour dates. And coming up July 4th, 7 p.m. at Mizell Avenue Park in Springfield, New Jersey, the 60s Spectacular with Dennis Tufano, the 1910 Fruit Company, Barbara Harris, the lead vocalist of the Toys. You mentioned you play many musical instruments, Dennis. Did you grow up in a musical family?
Yes, my father was a musician. He was in a band in his younger years. As a matter of fact, until I was about 5 years old, he was still playing. He played saxophone, violin, and sang. Also played harmonica. Had a beautiful tenor voice. So I grew up with listening to a lot of music, and not only him playing his saxophone and violin, but also his love of music. He also studied music, so he wrote music too. So he was not a professional. I mean, he had to stop playing music to raise the family, to make a living. But he was quite into theory and everything else. So I was surrounded by notes and music and great 78s. He was playing all the great records at the time. So and he never once tried to influence me in that direction. He just let the stuff be available to me, and he just waited to see what I went towards, And so it was really subtle for, when I actually walked up to him one day and said, I'm in a cappella group. I'm really having a lot of fun singing. And he says, "Oh, great." He said, "Well, then he pulled out some music, and then he pulled out something. He said, "Well, hey, you might want to read this, or you might want to listen to this." So once he knew I was interested in the music, he started showing me some of his, past stuff. So it was great to have that kind of support, and my parents were very supportive. Anyway, I was actually groomed to be a graphic artist. I came out of high school. I apprenticed for a year as a graphic artist, and then I had my second year of being a paid professional is when the band started to take off. And then I realized I was having more fun on the weekends than I was during the week, punching the clock.
Yeah.
So I asked my parents, I said, I know I've had this job and I do this thing, but the music is really getting good. Would it be okay if I quit my day job and went off and did this? And they said, "Well, as long as that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it, but don't come back and say that, why did you let me do this if it doesn't work?"
Well, that's
that
fair.
was their only...
That's fair.
That was their only caveat, and I said, "Okay, it's a deal. I won't blame you if it goes bad." So sure enough, and basically 2 years later, we had a record out, So, and people have asked me sometimes, what's the greatest memory that you have about having success at that early age? And for me, it was watching the look on my parents' face when they turned on the radio and my song was on the radio.
Oh, yeah.
And they could hear my voice coming out of the speaker. That the look on their face was just priceless.
Hey, Dennis,
so for me,
I was going to say, what is your first memory when you heard yourself on the radio? Do you even remember that moment?
Yeah, actually, we were in our Dodge van driving up to North Dakota or something for a gig from Chicago, and it was like, it was very late. It was after the show, I believe. We were coming back, and some little station, that we picked up in the trip said, and here's the new hit by the Buckinghams, and Kind of a Drag came on. And we were like, wow, that was just released, and they just played it. And it wasn't a big record, it wasn't number one yet. But it was like, wow, we heard that. And earlier than that, we heard I'll Go Crazy. We had a single in Chicago called I'll Go Crazy, the James Brown song, which is on our first album. Mm-hmm. And we heard that played because we took it to the radio station to try to get it played. And then when we left, Dick Biondi, who was on WLS at the time, he snuck it on the air before he signed off, and we heard it as we were leaving downtown on the radio. So that was the first time we heard that record played, and we didn't know he was going to play it that night. So that was fun, too. So I've always had a little bit of a problem listening to myself.
Do you?
Because, as we know, because when we hear ourselves, we hear it to our ears, through our bones. But when you hear it recorded and you hear it played back, it sounds like a different person.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's true.
It took me a while. Yeah, it took me a while to understand that hearing my voice through the airwaves was different than hearing it through my head. Mm-hmm. And but then I got used to it. I mean, if you make as many records as we did and stuff, you get kind of used to it by that. After a certain amount of time.
Two more quick questions, Dennis, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Before the Buckinghams, the name the Buckinghams, did that have anything to do with perhaps the British invasion? And you guys were an American group, and you wanted it to sound British, or was that have anything to do with that?
What happened with that is we were called the Pulsations.
Right.
We needed a name that moved, so we called ourselves the Pulsations. It had a lot of movement to it. And, to compete for the ballroom dances and the drag strip shows and stuff like that, you had to have something that sounded exciting. And we won a Battle of the Bands as the Pulsations to be on a local TV show, WGN-TV in Chicago, called All Time Hits. They had many, like 5 or 6 different kind of genres of music on there. We were the rock and roll portion. And every week it was a live show, and they used to play whatever the top 10 was for popular music, they would do on the show. And we would be handed either a Beatles song or a Tom Jones song, or something to cover the hits of the day. So when we were in rehearsals for that show, the producers came up to us and said, would you consider changing your name to sound a little bit more English because of the British invasion? It's such a big deal right now. This is 65. And would you consider doing that? And we said, well, the Pulsations is kind of a local band, so it wouldn't hurt us. And as long as we have TV coverage, so whatever the new name is will get us out there. So we said, yeah, we'll think about it. Well, the next day, a security guard who was working there, a young guy, who had kind of long hair for 1965, came up to us and handed us a piece of paper that he heard what they had said, and he scribbled down a couple of thoughts about some names overnight. And we looked at the list, and the Buckinghams jumped off the page for us because there's a fountain in Chicago called Buckingham Fountain. It's in Grant Park. It's been there forever. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of work from the 20s. Big, lights and everything, and it's gigantic. So we said, well, this is great because, Buckingham's sounds like the palace, and that's English, and we got our fountain, so that connects us back to Chicago. So we said, yeah, that'll work out fine because we're not just giving it up, selling out to be English. We're making a combination here. So we made that connection, and they put us out there as the Buckinghams, and a lot of people thought we were English because of that.
It was almost predestined with the fountain in Chicago, and
it was just perfect. As a matter of fact, on the front of the Kind of a Drag album cover, the background is Buckingham.
Is that the fountain? Oh, okay, sure, of course, that all makes sense.
So we had,
Final question: what was it like working with Bernie Taupin?
Oh, Bernie was great. Bernie was he's such a regular guy. And quite the rock and roll poet, And it was interesting meeting him. And we talked and talked and talked. And then we were at a bar. And one night he said to me, "What do you do during the day?" He said, "I only see you here at night." And I told him I was, a singer and songwriter. he said, well, I'm, thinking about doing a solo record with some material that, wouldn't be right for Elton, but I would like to do it. It's kind of autobiographical and and I'm going to sing on it and everything. And I said, I gave him a couple of demos I was doing with Tom Scott at the time. And he listened to them and he liked my music. So he gave me some lyrics. And he said, here, go home and see what you can do with this. And I was, of course, blown away because he had Bernie Taupin lyrics, and they were great. Mm-hmm. And I did about half the song because there was a lot of lyrics. I did about half the song, and I took it to him, and I said, I'd like to play this for you to make sure I'm in the right direction. And I played it for him, and he said, wow, that's great. That's exactly what I heard in my head, and he gave me the rest of the lyrics. And that became the start of an album called He Who Rides the Tiger. And right. That was back in 1979, and I became part of the family after that. With him and his brother and his family and stuff. He's a great guy, very talented. Great.
Speaking of very talented, everyone we've been speaking with, the incredibly talented tennis Tufano, and we've been loving his talent since the 60s, and now with this latest CD, I Remember Darren, with the Michael Acosta Orchestra. It's on, you can get it on CD Baby, iTunes, Amazon. Go to TufanoFans.com, DTSings.com. Really happy to hear about the new app on Android and iPhone. Just
do a
search for Dennis Tufano. Yeah. And Twitter and Facebook, all the social media stuff. And Dennis, it has been such an honor and a pleasure to speak with you. Like I said at the top, I'm a first-generation Buckingham fan, and to be able to speak with you, it really means a lot to me, and I just want to thank you so very much.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for your love of the music and for what I'm doing now. It means a lot to me that you help me promote what I'm doing now, because, it's been a long, long, long road. And to be where I'm at now is very, very fulfilling and rewarding when I do the music from the 60s. And because now everybody has stories attached to the songs. Mm-hmm. And the stories that they tell me that relate to the songs are unbelievable. It's just, it's hard to believe that through less than 3 minutes of something that you did came up on the air and people's lives were magnetized to it in some way or another. Just like you said with you and your wife. Yeah. It's an amazing thing. It just drives home the power that music has, and I'm so grateful that I'm still able to participate in it. So thank you again for inviting me to do the show.
Well, thank you for all the music, Dennis, and I hope we can speak again sometime.